This case takes place in the United Kingdom on the 7th of May, 2011. Emily Longley was born in London, England on the 22nd of February 1994. She was the firstborn to Mark and Caroline Longley. 2 years later, her parents had her younger sister Hannah. From early childhood, Emily and Hannah were very close. They both grew up in a loving family. However, London was not a good place for Emily. She was a vulnerable young girl with eating disorders and other health and emotional issues. So they decided to move country to start a new life. Like many families in the UK, Mark and Caroline had their eyes set on emigrating down under, not to Australia, but to Auckland, New Zealand. Mark got himself a job at a news outlet, and Caroline worked as a nurse. They moved when Emily was 10 and Hannah was 8, so it was an incredibly sensitive age to move away from their roots. However, this was for the greater good. Emily was known as compassionate and caring. She had an outgoing personality and a wicked, sometimes dark sense of humour. Many of those around her thought she had a promising future ahead of her. Emily had often said that she would like to become a successful model one day. Many of her friends and family believed she could do it. She was driven and had a distinct natural beauty from a young age. The Longley family came back to the UK to see relatives during the festive season in 2010. The family headed to Emily's grandparents, Ronald and Zosia Longley. They lived in a large detached cottage near the seafront in Southbourne near Bournemouth. Emily was excited as this gave her the chance to meet up with several old friends. Her friends were studying at Brockenhurst College, and one day she went with them to see what it was like. She enjoyed being back with her friends, and she loved the college. So much so that she decided to stay in the UK so she could study at Brockenhurst College and chase the dream of becoming a model. In hindsight, the parents questioned their decision to let their daughter leave the family home in New Zealand, and for good reason, considering what happened to her. But no parent could ever have foreseen the horrific events that were about to unfold. Her father once said, "When Emily had set her mind on something, you just needed to buckle up and go along for the ride. There's no holding Emily back." So Emily created a new life for herself in Bournemouth along the South English coastline. For most of the year, Bournemouth is a beautiful part of the world and home to many affluent people. It is a hotspot for British surfers during the summer months. While studying at the college, Emily got a part-time job at Topshop. For those who don't know, Topshop was a well-known retail outlet back in the noughties and early teens. Emily was very much known for her beauty inside and out. As she developed into a woman, she started to attract a lot more male attention. One man in particular tried his luck with Emily, and his name was Elliot Turner. Elliot was born in Birmingham, England, to Lee and Anita Turner in 1991. His mother Anita was an Indonesian citizen who came to the UK and married Elliot's father Lee. Lee Turner was a wealthy jeweller who inherited the family business from his father in the early 2000s. The business was in Bournemouth, England. Elliot was pretty spoiled, and he got his own way a lot. He always knew how to get what he wanted. Elliot started further education at the University of Southampton when he was 18 years old, but he dropped out and got a job in his father's jewellery business. Elliot developed a reputation for clubbing and thought of himself as some kind of celebrity. He would go to all of the affluent bars and clubs from Bournemouth to Poole. He fancied himself as a bit of a playboy. He was always seen with numerous women and flaunting cash and expensive clothing. He lived a frivolous and carefree life. When he was out clubbing, he would buy expensive bottles of vodka and party in private booths. But Elliot wasn't alone on this high-end clubbing scene. Elliot and his Silver Spoon friends were part of a gang they liked to call the Firm. Elliot would often roll up to see his friends in his black Mini Cooper, which his grandparents had bought him, and he would brag about his sexual encounters. He would claim that he was having intimate relations with some of the area's reality TV stars. His boasting was relentless. and he even claimed he had to spend some time in a rehab center to knock a cocaine addiction. On social media, he was quoted as referring to himself as Scarface. However, his friends in his little cringy gang would refer to him as Old Dog Turner. His own father Lee even said he was full of gangster bravado, although his carefree attitude and his god complex seemed relatively innocent. Many young adults with privileged upbringings enjoy adulthood in the same way. However, in this case, Elliot had become something of a monster. Elliot's lifestyle hid a deeply immature, manipulative, jealous, and violent core. He would carry with him a hammer, boasting that he would use it if someone crossed him. Not only this, Elliot appeared to have a lot of female attention, but he couldn't handle rejection. In January of 2008, when Elliot was only 16 years of age, the police issued him with a harassment warning letter. The police had told him that he must cease all communication with his ex-girlfriend. This was following a period after the relationship ended, where Elliot bombarded his ex with text messages and emails. His friends would later say that when he broke up with his ex and he received the harassment letter, he wanted to suffocate her with a pillow. In many cases, this would be seen as an overreaction or hyperbole, but in retrospect, this was the early signs of a truly despicable and callous monster. In December of 2010, the firm was out living the high life before Old Dog Turner noticed the glowing Emily from across the room. Elliot approached her, and the two hit it off instantly. Emily's beauty suited Elliot, as she complimented his image as a successful gangster playboy. After all, he had worked so hard to create this image. Likewise, Emily was only 16, nearly 17, and she was taken in by the life of abundance that Elliot offered. It wasn't long before the two declared their love for each other, and all was well. Until Elliot started showing the telltale signs of domestic abuse. He employed emotional abuse by controlling what she wore. He started with calling her all kinds of misogynistic and derogatory names, before becoming physically abusive. It was reported that he regularly grabbed her by the throat, and he even punched her in public. Elliot was controlling. He had gained access to Emily's social media accounts and would often pose as Emily. He would write to her male friends, telling them that she didn't like them anymore and that they should stay away. Not only this, he would isolate her further by trying to divide her from her female friendships. After treating Emily in such a way, he would apologize every time, but this repentance was followed up with even more abuse. He would blame Emily for his temper, gaslighting her, saying that she made him hit her. And last, but by no means least, Elliot even threatened to take her life countless times, and sometimes in front of other people. Elliot had no shame or empathy, and this was not what Emily had signed up for. But sadly, Emily still adored him. In a desperate attempt to stop Elliot's abusive nature and to save the relationship, Emily wrote him a letter whilst they were on holiday on the Isle of Man. This letter read: 1. I love you. 2. Don't say you'll kill me. 3. Stop talking about your ex-girlfriends. 4. Be less aggressive and cooler. It's much hotter and less intimidating. But this didn't stop Elliot. His inconsideration for others and obsession with himself was too strong. It became unbearable for Emily. In April of 2011, only 5 months after they met, Emily went back to Auckland, New Zealand to see her parents. Her father had waited at the airport for her arrival, as he had not seen his daughter for 6 months. Emily had a great relationship with her father, and they had a similar dark sense of humour. New Zealand was her home for most of her life, and was a safe haven for her. The first day back, she went for a meal with her family, and discussed her life back home in the UK. She mentioned that she had a boyfriend named Elliot, but made no attempt to explain how abusive he actually was. Emily also took the time to meet up with some old friends while she was back home. Amongst having a laugh with the friends, she uploaded a photograph onto social media with 2 topless waiters. Elliot saw this, and he became enraged. He began bombarding her with messages over and over again, just as he did with his ex-girlfriend. Emily's time in New Zealand was at an end, and she took a return flight to the UK. She told her father that she would come back to New Zealand in 5 months to watch the Rugby World Cup, and that she had also decided to break up with Elliot. When she arrived back in the UK, she did end the relationship. She had finally had enough of Elliot. But Elliot did not take the breakup well. He became embroiled in jealousy and bitterness. After a heated argument with Elliot, Emily decided to sleep with Elliot's best friend, Luke Ashford. Emily also started going on dates and chatting to other men online. She made it abundantly clear that she wanted to move on from her toxic relationship with Elliot. Unfortunately, Elliot had access to all of this information. He had the passwords to her social media accounts. When Emily would organise to meet up with another man, Elliot would turn up and derail the date. On one occasion, he approached Emily's new love interest named Lewis Powell. He came armed with a hammer and claimed that he was her boyfriend and that Lewis must leave her alone. It was reported that after this aggressive engagement, he returned to his Mini Cooper and sat hitting the steering wheel in anger. All the while, Elliot had actually slept with 3 separate women during their relationship. He didn't want to be with Emily out of love, he wanted to possess her. The same night he met up with his friends and claimed that he had killed her with his lump hammer and dumped her into the bushes. Elliot then claimed it was a joke. Not seeing the sinister nature of Elliot's jokes, Elliot's young and naive friend named Tom Crow went on and continued to joke about killing Emily. The two began fantasizing about setting fire to her in Elliot's bedroom. They discussed strangling her and then proceeded to practice strangleholds on each other. Little did Tom know, Elliot was only days away from committing this very act. After some time, Elliot thought that they had patched up their relationship following several conversations. He thought the relationship was back on track. However, Elliot and Emily were not on the same page at all. On the evening of the 6th of May 2011, Emily was out with her friends at a bar called Cafe Shaw. Elliot knew where she was and he had access to her social media still, so he decided to go and see her. When he arrived, he was infuriated by her outfit. This outfit included short shorts, a bra and a small waistcoat. Elliot, in all his fragility, couldn't handle what she was wearing, and so he proceeded to say that she looked like a whore, his favourite adjective for Emily. The confrontation escalated, ending with Emily throwing her drink in his face. Elliot continued to call her all manner of nasty names, and then threatened violence. Oliver George, one of Elliot's friends, said that he tried to punch her during a hissy fit. After ruining her evening, Emily decided to leave. Elliot started hitting tables and chairs, screaming threats to her life. His friends heard him say, "I will kill her, I will go to prison for it, and I will still be a millionaire. I would do 10 years, it wouldn't bother me at all." He then texted his mother, saying that he was going to kill Emily. Despite Emily having broken up with him, he refused to let go, so he followed Emily. Eventually, Elliot caught up with her and persuaded her to come back to his family house in Queen's Park, Bournemouth. He claimed that he just wanted to talk. Emily decided to go back to his house, despite texting him the following: "Hit me with a mallet, do whatever you want to me, I will never get back with you, I hate you." They both headed back alongside Elliot's trusty sidekick, Tom Crow. Emily thought that going to his family house would at least mean he wouldn't be abusive. After all, she believed that Elliot's parents were at home, and that they may provide a calming environment. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case. It seems that during this time, his parents were in bed. The last person to see Emily alive aside from Elliot was Tom Crow. Elliot, Emily and Tom all walked together back to Elliot's home. Elliot and Emily went inside whilst Tom waited outside. Moments later, Elliot emerged from the home and pressed a hammer into Tom's chest. He told Tom that he wanted him to go inside with the hammer and kill Emily for him, but Tom refused. Shortly after this, Emily tried to lock Elliot out of the house. Elliot weighed 13 stone. He overpowered Emily and got inside the house. A neighbour just so happened to be passing by at the time. Tom, who was still waiting outside, told this neighbour that he believed that Elliot was going to kill Emily. Neither of them did anything, and Tom went home in a taxi. Meanwhile, inside the house, Elliot and Emily went to the bedroom and continued the fighting. The argument intensified as Elliot forced Emily onto the bed. As they struggled, Emily's makeup was being smudged into Elliot's clothing and on the bedsheets. Forensic investigations would later state that the makeup marks on the pillows were consistent with a pillow smothering. Elliot deployed this act just as he had fantasized with his ex-girlfriend. But smothering Emily wasn't enough to kill her. He then rolled her over and placed her in a stranglehold. Elliot held Emily so tightly that she couldn't breathe. Evidence suggests that there was a struggle, but Elliot persisted with his sick and vengeful fantasy of murder. Emily's blood vessels began to hemorrhage in her face and eyelids, as reported on the coroner's report. After a few moments, Emily was dead. Elliot, unsure of what to do next, decided that he must run away. Elliot grabbed his passport and he packed a bag. Alongside this, he wrote a confession letter to his mother, saying that he was heading to Spain. However, he decided to stay, thinking he would create a story to mask the reality of his actions, and he kept this letter in his jacket pocket in the bedroom. After all, this man with such a main character god complex thought he could get away with anything. Or at least, so he thought. It isn't clear what Elliot did next, but he later claimed he didn't know that Emily was dead. He claimed he had fell asleep. On the morning of the 7th of May 2011, there was a call made to the emergency services by Elliot's mother.
Just tell me what's happened there, the reason for the call.
What it is, my son's friend is staying with us. This morning I tried to wake both of them up, but the girl didn't wake up. We tried to wake her up, I don't know what it is.
I need you to pull back the duvet for me and just look to see if you can see any signs of breathing.
I tried to hold the pulse.
No, I need you to put your face next to her mouth. Can you feel any breath? Can you see her chest going up and down?
No.
Nothing. What colour is she?
What colour is she?
Yeah, what colour is she? She's blue? Is she red?
Is she red? My husband is having a look now. Hang on.
The emergency operator directed an ambulance to the Turner residence, but of course it was too late. At 9 in the morning, all the ambulances could do was state the death of Emily Longley. At the other side of the world at 2 a.m, Mark Longley awoke to several missed calls from his ex-wife Caroline and their young daughter Hannah. He also received a barely audible voicemail from Hannah, but before he could decipher it, he heard Caroline screaming in the background, shouting, "Emily is dead." In disbelief, Mark immediately called his mother in England. When she picked up the phone, she was crying hysterically. Mark's heart sank in his chest. Moments later, a police officer took the phone from his mother, confirming the devastating news. The police officer told Mark, "I'm sorry to tell you that your daughter Emily is dead." Just weeks earlier, Emily had been sitting on his couch smiling. Mark clung to the hope that his daughter's death was just a horrific dream. He quickly purchased some plane tickets and flew back to the United Kingdom. The police had informed Mark that his daughter had died in her sleep. This was a puzzling explanation, given her youth and good health. Meanwhile, Elliot was taken into the police station and was questioned. They had noticed that he had a bag packed to leave the country and had his passport in his pocket. This information would later be used by the prosecution in court. Elliot was initially taken in for questioning but released shortly after. He claimed that the two were arguing and that Emily became aggressive and violently attacked him. He said that all attempts to stop Emily were futile, so he held her down by the throat for 5 to 6 seconds, forcing her down onto the bed to restrain her. He said he then walked out of the room to cool down and then got back into bed without speaking to Emily. He claimed that he was oblivious to Emily's state until the morning. The police didn't believe his story. They had collected some evidence but were waiting for autopsy results to clarify what exactly had happened. Despite the suspicion around him, Elliot publicly posted photographs of Emily on his Facebook page, pretending to grieve his loss. As investigators awaited the autopsy results, they discovered a chilling post that Emily had made on her Facebook. On the 5th of May, Emily wrote, "I have a stalker." She also detailed a creepy phone call from an unknown man who claimed to know everything about her. Detectives started to think that the stalker may have been Elliot in disguise. Eventually, the autopsy was complete. It did not conclusively determine Emily's cause of death, but one expert suggested that strangulation was involved. They noted findings consistent with neck compression. In a shocking development in the murder investigation of Emily Longley, detectives decided to bug the Turner family home. They recorded countless hours across May and June of 2011, whilst Elliot was on bail. The police had a suspicion that something was untoward. Not only this, the police believed that his parents, Lee and Anita, might have had an input, with a high possibility of a cover-up. As they suspected, the recordings uncovered evidence that Elliot Turner's parents had assisted in covering up the crime. Highly incriminating audio recordings revealed that Lee Turner, Elliot's father, had destroyed a confession letter from his son. The very confession letter that Elliot wrote the night before. During a heated discussion, Lee was heard admitting, "Elliot f***ing strangled her." In response, Elliot was captured saying, "I just flipped. I went absolutely nuts. I just lost it. I grabbed her as hard as I could and I pushed her like that." Elliot continued and used derogatory language to describe Emily and expressed his pent-up anger towards her. Even after he had killed her, he maintained a deep resentment with no remorse. Elliot's mother Anita agreed with Elliot and blamed Emily for ruining his life. Lee Turner also shockingly acknowledged on tape that they had, quote, perverted the course of justice by destroying evidence. It would soon transpire that whilst the police were gathering evidence from the house, Elliot's parents were allowed to go back inside their property only for a moment. Elliot's father had told the investigators that he needed to get back inside the property to grab some important medication and told them that it would only take a few seconds to get it. And shockingly, they allowed this. Whilst inside, Elliot's parents retrieved the confession letter that Elliot had written, and they destroyed it. Anita argued that their actions to destroy the letter were justified. Lee didn't seem to be convinced and sounded as though he was having trouble keeping a lid on the secret imposed on him. He was recorded saying, "It's burning me inside every second of every day. I know something that they don't. It's eating me up." The family was also heard plotting to alter Anita's initial account concerning the delayed call to the paramedics. Anita had contacted her husband Lee before calling the emergency services. This resulted in a critical hour-long delay while the family communicated back and forth. The initial statement to the police was in line with what she had said to the emergency operator. However, during the recorded conversations, Anita admitted to removing the jacket from her son's bedroom following the incident, stating that she didn't think it was wrong to do so. The jacket with the confession letter. This was evidence that she went into the room before the time that she previously told the police. Elliot pleaded with his mother to say that it was very common for Emily to sleep in and that she was unaware of her state, and he instructed his mother on how to act around the police. Elliot was a skillful manipulator, and it is evident in the recordings that he was trying to control his mother and his father throughout the investigation. Further investigations into Elliot's computer search history revealed that he was seeking advice on how to cause death by strangulation. This showcased a premeditated curiosity. Elliot's digital footprint was damning. Not only this, there were numerous threatening text messages. These were admissions to friends about his violent thoughts towards Emily and painted a clear picture of his ill intentions. Elliot was arrested on suspicion of murder, alongside his parents, for perverting the course of justice. The trial of Elliot Turner began in May of 2012. It delved deeply into his troubled psyche, exposing a young man consumed by anger and frustration. During the trial, his defense swung between claims of self-defense, expressions of regret, and outright denial. The defense also offered a distorted recounting of the night Emily died. As the trial progressed, the complex persona of Elliot Turner emerged more clearly. He was portrayed as a privileged young man raised in a lavish setting by indulgent parents in their upscale Queen's Park home in Bournemouth. The prosecution presented a compelling case that jealousy was a major motive behind the crime. They highlighted that Elliot was possessive and menacing. In the end, the jury agreed that he was guilty. The judge sentenced him to 16 years imprisonment and followed the sentencing up with a speech that characterized him well. The judge emphasized Elliot's arrogance and manipulative nature with his relationships, stating that he won't have access to champagne, Bentleys, and girls anymore. The judge also stated that Emily was described as bright and kind-hearted, having her life cruelly ended by Elliot's actions. Furthermore, Elliot's parents Anita and Lee were also held accountable and found guilty of perverting the course of justice, although they were only sentenced to 27 months in prison, and they only served half. After their release, they were ostracized by their community. Elliot was imprisoned at the HMS Swaleside prison in Kent. Elliot Turner's behaviour continued to cause controversy even after his incarceration. Reports from 2013 revealed that he boasted about receiving fan mail from older women. He would display the photographs and letters from women who believed that he was innocent on the wall of his cell. But more disturbingly, he decorated the cell with photographs of Emily, claiming his love for her and maintaining his innocence. This behaviour not only demonstrated a lack of remorse, but also incited tension within the prison community. His arrogance and continuous claims of innocence eventually led to a backlash from other inmates. He reportedly faced an attack in his cell, which resulted in him being transferred to another wing. Elliot has even attempted to appeal his murder conviction, but thankfully this was denied. His current location within the prison system remains undisclosed, and he is ineligible for parole until at least 2028. Meanwhile, Emily's family have not yet overcome the grief caused by Emily's untimely departure. Emily's father Mark exclaimed, "What a load of rubbish closure is! Grief never ends." Mark has not forgiven or forgotten about what Elliot Turner did to Emily and his family. This case takes place on the 7th of May. This case takes place